Pussy, you sour. Never giving credit where it's due because you don't like pussy in power.
Well, boys can be feminists. Feminism is wanting equality for all genders. Period. Just because they can't understand all the issues women face doesn't mean they can't be feminists and support gender equality advances. You're right, they can support feminism in the nicest way possible. Are you a liberal feminist by any chance? The reason why most feminists are weary when women call men feminists, especially partners, it's because it's situational. I don't know many men who go out of their way to read feminist theory. There are communists who don't even read feminist theory. It's the last thing on the mind because it doesn't really affect them. Whilst it is valuable to have a man's outsider's point of view of feminism and opinions, not on everything, but on some things, if we just center men around our feminism, women of colour and misogyny affected people are the ones who are usually silenced.
I get comments in this vein all the time, and it's really, really interesting the things that men think are most likely to be hurtful to me. Their insults always come down to either my appearance or my relationship status. It's always, oh, the poor guy that'll end up with her, or, oh, well, I wouldn't sexually harass you if you were the last woman on earth. Like, no shit, Sherlock, it's not a compliment. And they really do think that telling me that I'm not much to look at is the worst insult that they can give me, because women are taught that our most inherent value is in our looks. But actually, what's much, much more important to me is my voice and my opinions and my intellect and my personality. It's really interesting that you should place my value on my attractiveness to a man, because that's not where I place it. I think all of those things are far, far more important. And because I'm not looking for validation on the basis of my looks, these things have very little impact.
Okay, I just wanted to reiterate what I was talking about when I was saying that white women were infantilized. I don't think that being infantilized and treated as a second-class citizen is a good thing, but it'd be really stupid to not consider that a privilege in certain situations, especially when you're looking at it from an intersectional point of view. Being the damsel in distress that always needs to be protected is the reason why when they get kidnapped, they get national media coverage, but not when there's 4,000 missing Indigenous women in Canada. White women's privilege is so unique that they can use their experience with misogyny as a tool to aid their whiteness. We've seen them use this privilege against men. White women's lies and deceptions have landed black men in jail. White women's infantilization was the entire catalyst behind Emmett Till's story.
You're not black, don't call me sis.
People in her comment section mocking her, stop. A lot of people in her comment section are calling her the name she specifically told you not to call her by if you weren't black, and a lot of you are trying to debate her on her boundary. All of these are white women. Anyone can say sis, nah sis. What's up, sis? Why so much hate in your heart, sis? You're the issue, sis. Go seek help, sis. Look at this. Sis doing it for clout. You mad, sis? The top comment is, ha ha ha, sorry about your ego, sis. Let's work on that. When a person sets a boundary, you have two choices. You can respect that boundary, or you can walk away. You do not get to turn that person's boundary into a debate and try to be some objective judge on whether or not her boundary is appropriate. Her boundary is not about you. You feeling like you have a say in her boundary is your entitlement. You do not get to create, debate, mock, or violate her boundary. Her boundary is her boundary. I don't care about how her boundary makes you feel.
I just had a male rape survivor tell me that he is more concerned about having a false allegation against him than he is about getting raped again. This floored me, and it made me reconsider where men are coming from on this. Here's my take, let me know what you think. Emotionally, it doesn't matter that factually men are more likely to be raped than they are to be falsely accused. What matters emotionally to men are the things they can't imagine fighting off, like an accusation. Against a false accusation, men feel powerless. Men feel like they won't be believed. In short, culturally, men feel like a woman. And men, this is why feminism is also important to us. If we can start believing women, then we too will be believed.
If I could go back in time, I would probably change the word TERF to something else. Because the acronym Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminist is a misnomer. And it's obvious when you break it down piece by piece. Like the first part, trans exclusionary, it doesn't really describe the extent of their hatred towards trans people. It's not like they're just not letting trans women into feminist spaces. They bully and harass trans people. They use slurs against them. They're actively opposed to the well-being of trans people when they say they shouldn't use certain facilities like restrooms or crisis centers. And they partner with conservatives to try to pass anti-trans legislation. That's not just exclusionary, that's reactionary. They're a hate group. And the next letter, R, they're not very radical either. The only radical thing about them is that they don't look at things through an individualist lens, but that's really as far as it goes. They claim they're radical because they attack patriarchy at the root, but their analysis of patriarchy is very weak. And they don't give a very clear revolutionary plan as to how to attack it. Plus, they're not communist or anarchist or socialist, so they're not radical in the sense that they're anti-capitalist. A lot of them are pro-Bernie at best. And the last letter, they're not very good feminists either. Many of them don't know the basic history of feminism, and a lot haven't read feminist theory outside of the Dworkin quote bot. They don't even have discussions with other feminists unless they're also TERFs. And their rhetoric has spread so much that even anti-feminists use TERF talking points now. For example, a few years ago when those anti-trans bathroom laws were proposed, Republican lawmakers wrote it, but they quoted a TERF. So the acronym TERF only goes so deep into explaining what their movement is actually about. And the inaccuracy of the label kind of gives them a little bit of plausible deniability when they claim that they aren't a hate group, because it doesn't explicitly call them out for being bigoted, for having the same fundamental values as other hate groups like the alt-right. But none of this is me necessarily saying that we should stop using the word TERF. We do need a word to differentiate their rhetoric from other transphobic hate groups, and we do need to acknowledge that they are a part of feminist spaces and are appropriating feminism, and it's the most well-known term, so it might be too late to change it at this point.
Sick and tired of bitches acting like they wanna know me. Friendly and the phony tries to check me, it's a warning. Let's go!
The categories of gender are made up, obviously. They're not real. Like gender is a social construct. Everyone who has had a thought for more than 1 second in their life, can come to this conclusion. But for a lot of y'all, you cannot wrap your little heads around the idea that sex is also a social construct. The specific observable physical attributes and the things that we can observe that, 100 years ago was not a possibility to observe, like chromosomes, versus the actual physical attributes of genitals or sex characteristics like breasts or whatever. Which of these attributes are categorized into whatever binary of sex is itself constructed. It's an idea. People made that shit up, okay? Science is entirely based off of what humans observe and the categories and the conclusions that they come to based off of those observations. It's not something that would exist outside of human observation and human thinking and categorization and the systems that we've created around categorization. And this is why I know a lot of you rad femmes and radical feminists and TERFs and, other fascist fucking losers who think you're vaguely anti-capitalist or think that Marxist feminists are on your side. We're not, by the way. Are really missing. You're missing that key element of dialectical materialism, that key notion and understanding of the world to be something that is beyond the limitations of our observations as humans. Nature in itself, when it exists outside of human observation, sex doesn't exist. Gender doesn't exist, obviously, as we know. Categories themselves don't exist. Things just are. It is human observation that assigns specific sex traits or physically observable attributes to the binary category that humans created based off of what they could observe. These categories are meaningless and arbitrary at best, and oppressive at worst when taken into the context of larger systems at play. And we can see that to be true in every element of observable human society. You justifying upholding this binary of sex and the arbitrary made up rules of what make someone one sex or the other makes you just as bad, if not worse, than the misogynist that you hate for categorizing people as women or men and the oppression that comes with it.
Men are not allowed to tell me they don't like my makeup unless they can demonstrate on themselves how I should do it next time. Go on, Kyle. How should I do my glitter next time? Show me.
Had to share today's fit, and just a PSA to follow my Insta besties. I post good fits and sometimes my music.